like come, yeah, midfield.
Okay, amazing. Well, as some of you might know, my name is Zoey, class of 26, part of the VC Club here on campus. My background is in private equity, but over the past year or so, I've been spending a bit more time in healthcare and venture. So you definitely see more of the healthcare and VC events coming up. So this year, we are doing a series of panels to bring great investors to campus to discuss how they think about founders, markets, and careers in venture capital. And here with us today are two amazing VCs, Matt Rhodes-Kropf and Jeff Knox. Matt is the managing partner at Tectonic Ventures and professor here at MIT Sloan. He spent nearly 30 years in the entrepreneurial space from launching, I know.
That's what you said. 20 years.
20 years. From launching biotech startups to quantitative hedge funds to teaching VC at Harvard, Columbia, and now MIT. And Jeff is a senior associate at Innospark Ventures and MIT Sloan alum. At Innospark, he primarily focuses on AI applications in biotech and hard sciences, and previously worked in biopharma and digital health consulting. All right, so before we start, I'm going to share how we're going to structure it. So we're going to bifurcate it into 4 parts and keep it flowing. So part 1, overview of speakers' background and their journey into venture. Part 2, overview of their funds. Part 3, the current state of venture investing. So, like what's working across different stages, sectors, business models, and, examples of a company they truly enjoyed working with. And part 4, more on the recruiting side, right? So like how to break into VC, especially from MBA or early career paths. And then we're going to open that for Q&A and networking. Okay, amazing. Let's get started. Now, we've shared your bios with the students, but obviously it's better coming from you. So could you each start by telling us a little bit more about your journey, what led you into VC, and what's top of your mind these days in terms of investment categories?
Lead? I can lead off. So I can do the fun. First, thank you all for coming. It's great to be here. I can do the fun briefly and myself as well. So my name is Jeff Knox. I'm one of the investors at Innospark Ventures. We are a Boston-based early-stage fund. We sit just across the river in Back Bay. By early stage, I mean we're mostly interested in investing in pre-seed and seed rounds. So we don't found companies, but we invest as early as it gets. And we are interested in applications of data science, AI, and machine learning applied to hard problems. So we, as a fund, work on the verticals of life sciences, deep technologies, healthcare, and then some sort of more traditional tech software businesses. In all those places, we're looking to apply data science to solve some sort of hard problem, sort of as the way we generate value. We typically write checks in the neighborhood of like $1 to $3 million. To give you an idea, we've written checks bigger and smaller than that, but that's kind of where our sweet spot is. We have a platform function. We like to support the companies that we back and sort of put our thumb on the scale, try to help them succeed. We've been around for about 7 years as a fund. I have been with the fund since I graduated Sloan in 22, so I've been with them for 3.5 years now, so time flies. So that's the fund. I can take more questions on that. For myself, really briefly, life sciences is my background. I did a biomedical engineering degree, figured out I wasn't cut out to be any variety of doctor. Went and did consulting, went to the dark side immediately, worked mostly with pharma and biotech companies, which taught me that I really liked the industry. We wanted to work with young companies instead of big ones. As Matt will tell you, can always go be a consultant. To figure out how I wanted to work with young companies, that's what I came to Sloan to do. I bounced around in a couple of different options, sat in Matt's class, learned all I know, figured out that VC was probably the right way for me, and was fortunate to link up with my venture fund actually in the second part of my second year. So I was working part-time with them even before I graduated and hopped over full-time afterwards. So that's me in a nutshell. Great to be here with all of you.
And Innospark does a lot of stuff around MIT, so.
Yes, yeah, we'll be in the audience somewhere when you do your next pitch competition.
Should I do fun? Okay, fun. Tectonic Ventures. Most of you know, whatever. So, B2B, early stage, technological solution to a tough business problem. We're focused on really finding those interesting technologies and really trying to understand what the economic value add is. It's myself and a couple of partners, both of whom were my former students at either HBS or here. We write a check of $1 to $3 million. We've co-invested together. We're happy to co-invest. We are almost always or very often the first check in to a startup as it's getting going. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
Me. I mean, I got into venture as like my side hustle. I didn't know venture was a thing. It was a long time ago. We had just invented fire, and we didn't have side hustles back then either. But I sort of had one, and I kept investing in things and starting companies, and then talking other people into funding those companies. And then one of my friends told me that I should probably charge them money. And I was like, really? Why? And he's like, that's what a professional does when they find you lots of things to invest in. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I should do that. So I charged a 7% carry, no fee.
Wow.
That was my opening move. I thought it was like so much money at the time. I was like, oh my God. People will pay me to do that. I had a full-time job, and I was like, yeah, I just get these carry options. These are great. It's because I was doing deal by deal for a long time. And kept just really enjoying teaching students, researching and figuring out how this world worked, and then starting companies and helping people start companies. So that's why I ended up starting all sorts of weird companies, as people know, from a bar to a gym to a multi-strat hedge fund to a biotech firm. And the only common factor there is I love working with small companies and getting them up off the ground and going. And I sort of don't care what they do as long as there's kind of some remarkable economics in what they were doing. So each one of those things had sort of a particular slice. It wasn't sort of, it wasn't a sort of standard biotech or a standard hedge fund. You're saying, oh, let's start a hedge fund or just start by. There was a really interesting economic cut to the whole thing, and that's why I was like, I'm in. Let's give that a shot.
Yeah. And this is amazing. Essentially, started doing the VC job without being the VC before becoming the VC.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, amazing. Well, for Jeff, you mentioned consulting, and I know in consulting, typically you can point to a very tangible deliverable by the end of the day or end of the week, but that's a little bit different in venture because it's more open-ended. So how have you adjusted to that ambiguity? Like, how do you think about measuring growth or progress in your investing career?
That's a good question. I think that one of the things that I think Matt probably mentions in venture is that like the feedback cycle is very long. Like it'll take me a very long time to know if I'm any good at this job. It'll be years on, and I will have made several other investments before I figure out if my first funds even work. So yes, that is very different. I think that it's something that you more or less have to accept about the job, if I'm going to be very honest. I don't think that there are some markers of progress along the way. The companies that I invest in can get follow-on rounds from other investors who think that my idea is smart too. Like, we can, build a brand that has, founders actually come to us and say, I think you might be a good match, instead of me having to go find them. So there's some markers along the way, and I think we cling to those, where we can. But you're right that is very different, and that you can't necessarily see quantifiable, tangible progress quite so much, and that's unfortunately I think just part of the job.
Yeah, I agree. It's very nebulous in a lot of ways. Matt, do you have anything to add?
I always say that I'll know if I'm good by about the time I'm dead.
Very much appreciate.
It's just not enough data, so you don't know. The world changes, so even everything that you thought you knew about investing. There was always this question of, does it even apply now to this next wave of whatever's going on? So sort of you're learning and the world's shifting at about the same pace you're learning, or maybe it's shifting faster than you're learning anyway. So yeah, it's very strange from the, it's easy to have a existential crisis about, am I any good at this? Why are we doing anything valuable kind of days?
Exactly. And for Matt, you've seen multiple market cycles over the years. I was hearing stories from a couple of years back, and that was during the boom time. VCs were issuing term sheets within days, sometimes with almost no diligence at all. So from your perspective, what's changed most from, in terms of risk taking or entrepreneurship?
Oh, yeah, no, so it's back. The bubble is on full blown with the term sheets coming with no diligence. With crazy, we compete against, we find a company and we like it, and then we find out they have a 10 million uncapped note offer. I can't, I'm not going to beat that financially. Now I've got to spend the whole time convincing you not to take that. Don't take that. So it's definitely crazy out there. It makes it very hard. I have invested through a whole bunch of these. Even sort of recently, 2021 was fintech bubble extraordinaire,
Biotech too.
And yeah, exactly. Biotech was out and then crashing down. And so actually one slide in our pitch deck, we show every check that we wrote in 2021 and what it's worth today. It is the hardest thing to do is to sort of realize what makes a good investment while everybody seems to be making money in dumbass investments. So, because you'll spend there all this time, you really focus in, you'll get, I'm going to pass. $200 million valuation, $2 billion valuation, 10 minutes later, and you're like, I passed. But then, you realize as you go through the bubble ends, and then the things that made no economic sense, eventually the emperor does have no clothes, and they all shake out and they come crashing down. And so in the fintech world, you just saw all these things where they were essentially just either lending or offering insurance, which is effectively what they all did, at just the wrong price. Right? And it turns out it's easy to make lots of loans if you're making them to the wrong people. Giving away money, not so hard. Or insuring risks that you're way insuring incorrectly, also not that hard. The other side really likes that contract. So you could see it happening, and it was very frustrating to watch them like explode out while making unbelievably crappy loans. So it is on. The bubble's on. But, remember, what you can vibe code in a week, I can vibe code in a week. So and 6 other people can vibe code in a week. So as you're going through this, really try to stick to what makes a great company. What I always say, when the collapse comes, I sleep well every single time because my companies will be fine. Will they be worth as much as they were the day before? Nope. My companies will go down too, but then we will hold them through the collapse and out the other side, and then eventually we have great companies. And so I sleep well through that whole thing. You might try that, or you might try to make money really fast while the sun shines.
We use the word like conviction a lot in VC, and you have to have sort of conviction on both sides.
Absolutely. A lot of conviction on what you're doing.
Okay, amazing. Moving on, I'd like to talk a little bit more about your funds. So we talked about your fund size, how does it translate into check size and stage, but how about number of investments so far? How do you work with portcos after investing, or like what does the team look like? Things on those lines.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. So we put about 25 investments in a fund, which is a relatively small number these days. Everybody knows the power law. And so a lot of what firms try to do is put in a whole bunch of funds, a whole bunch of deals because they're hoping to sort of catch one. There's nothing wrong with that strategy. All I would say is holistically, you have to make it all work together, whatever your strategy is. And so I think it's probably a great example. This is sort of Y Combinator that does sort of an amazing job of attracting a very particular type of company, getting a whole bunch of them. Most of them will fail, and then grabbing 1 or 2 truly extraordinary ones. But even the next, the next accelerator down doesn't really work, and the one below that really doesn't work. And so it's sort of it is a model that like really works for Y Combinator, but doesn't necessarily work for other places and other people. So there's lots of different strategies. Ours, we're very focused on essentially winning the deal that we have a very strong conviction about. And when you say that that's what you want to do, then the answer is, well, how do you win that deal? Why? And money is a commodity, so the answer is we help an enormous amount. But when you say those words, everybody kind of says it, but we tell every single founder before they take money from us, call any of our founders. And we'll either send them to them, or we say, you call one on your own so that we didn't send them to you. And they always hear, and like I've said with my team all the time, they need to always hear, that was my best investor. They were the most valuable, they were the most helpful. So then we essentially always win. Like even when deals get big and crazy and other people want in, they're always like, and I'll take a little from you. And so that's why we can't, in some sense, we are limited. We couldn't do 50 deals because we could never give that amount of time to the firm. And we do it as they get going. So it's in that early part where everybody's so confused. Pricing, financing strategy, team building, everything you have to do right in the beginning, which is entrepreneurs are going crazy during that time. And so we build this trust and valuable relationship. And that makes it work for us.
Yeah, we're similar early stage investors, and so I'm going to tell you a relatively similar story here. In that, especially when you are one of the first check investors, you almost, that's what you should want as the CEO in your investors. You should want someone who is there to partner with you, who's there to be more than capital, who's there to wrestle with hard problems and make connections for you and sort of be useful in some number of ways with the hiring and with future capital and with introducing you to customers and thinking through strategy, because there's just not enough hours in the day for an early stage CEO to do everything. And the strategy of what should you spend your time on is really something that you need to get right. And so we also have, we have a whole platform function. We have someone who leads that up for us, who's thinking sort of with her whole schedule about how exactly we put our thumb on the scale in support of the founders that we back. The only other thing I guess I would add is that we like to work in some technical spaces as well. And we try to put in a lot of effort to deeply understand what the business is doing, both the technology that they're bringing forward and why it solves a real problem in the world and why a customer wants it and how you should develop it. And I think all that sort of feeds back into being able to be a good partner to our founders and being able to have like a valuable conversation with them where they don't have to dumb what they're doing down too much for us. But that's something we make a strong effort on as well.
Okay, great. Well, I also noticed there's some overlap between the two portfolios, right? There's the company called Waybot, which is essentially the startup using AI to make Wi-Fi more reliable and self-healing in a way. And that got me thinking about co-investor dynamics. So how do you think about how to build strong co-investor relationships beyond just sharing deals or stocking deals? Or how do you build great investor relationships?
You mean not around a company, but just sort of outside of the company?
Between investors.
Yeah, those are separate questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes you focus on a company. Who are the right partners for this deal?
Yes.
Right. Where you're really trying to think about what is
not for the company.
What is this going to do? Or versus just maintain
ecosystem,
these relationships in the
yeah.
ecosystem. Absolutely, it's critically important, particularly at the seed and early stage. We're not elbowing anybody out of our deal. We're not A16Z. You know what I mean? We all partner together over and over and over again. The big boys show up and all start sticking out their elbows and.
I'm much more likely to try and pull Matt into something than I am to elbow him out of it.
Right, and so if I find out that they're looking at the same deal, we just call each other. Like, oh, hey,
what do you think?
What do you think?
How did you get over this?
Right, exactly. Let's talk about all the problems and all the good things, and then let's either go in together or not. It's not that we make the same decision, but you definitely now, why don't I use all the information that you're seeing? So particularly when you're young, great to form those relationships across all firms, even if the firms themselves don't partner, because maybe the managing partners are a little competitive or warm with each other. At your level, you guys can be chit-chatting. What did you say? I need to make my report a little smarter and more on the money. Oh, thanks for the insight.
Yeah.
Then you can share data among the show.
Yeah, you want a lot of VC friends. You want people who you can get a beer with and afterwards be like, so did you know that the CEO and the CTO were married? How do you feel about that? Do you think it's gonna make it? Can we bet it? Yeah. So you want people who you can have very frank conversations with and not necessarily worry about them stabbing you in the back someday later.
Yeah, but I have other partners with other funds where we have a regular call. We talk about deals, even deals that they're actively looking at, and then they say, but I can't introduce you to this one. Okay, what he's saying is, it's hot, it's already got too much competition, he can't put me in, but he'll tell me about it and say, I can't introduce you. And I say, I got it, I know. That now, in some sense, I'm out. I can't go hunt around behind him and try to get an intro. I have to be out. And other times, he'll say, oh, I'll make you an introduction to this one. And we do the same. We tell him what we're seeing. But there's a very tight relationship. I'm not going to go around behind him or do anything that he doesn't want. And even if he invites me in, and then let's say everybody gets cut back, and so he says he only gets a $2 million allocation, he might say, okay, Matt, you can have 500. And there has to be this kind of, I get it, I can't knock you out. So even at the partner level, we're kind of very play nice. I also have a number of, GPs are my LPs. In a tiny way, not to get a big check from their fund, but little just personally. They give me a little bit of money, and I give them a little bit of money sometimes, and that way we can all be talking and seeing your deals, whatever else. Super important for.
All these relationships are long-term negotiations. It's never worth it for this one deal to do anything underhanded.
Exactly.
Cool, amazing. Well, now let's talk a little bit more about what's top of your mind these days. So Jeff, I know Innospark recently invested in Juniper Genomics, which essentially raised almost $5 million to bring genetic sequencing into embryo screening. And that feels like, a real intersection of biotech and AI. So can you talk about how you or the team evaluated that opportunity and what it says about where the industry is heading?
Yeah, this is one we're really excited about. So just to overview the company, so Juniper Genomics is a company that uses whole genome sequencing and some really cool AI to interpret it to help couples who are using IVF to grow their families choose embryos. Most couples who go through IVF make some number of embryos and they have to make a choice about which ones actually transfer. And it's probably a good example of where we had to get excited about the market and the solution and the founder all at once. So the market was easy. That's did you know that lots of people are spending more time on their education, starting their families later? And it's like, yes, I went to school with all of them. I know all those people who fit that demographic. And so it had strong sort of headwinds behind it tailwinds behind it in terms of the market. This is a good example of us having to understand the technology too. And on a surface level, it's kind of crazy that we haven't done something more before. So the incumbent technology is just chromosome counting and visual inspection. We just look at the embryo and yep, looks like a good embryo. And we count to make sure you have 46 chromosomes, which humans are supposed to have 46. If you have more or less, that's bad. We got to it, looked at this sort of state of affairs and we were like, but there's so much information on the chromosomes. Why wouldn't you look at it? Why wouldn't you go in and try to figure out if there's mutations that are actually going to be, incompatible with life? And it turns out the answer is that's people have thought of that before. It's just that the cost of genome sequencing had to come down to the point where it sort of intersected with the point where people are willing to pay for it. And that's only happened very, very recently, that we've made whole genome sequencing cheap enough that it got to the point where people who are going through this process are willing to pay what it costs. And so that was sort of the second insight. And then, of course, you always have to be excited about the people you're backing. And there was a very, very personable PhD in molecular genomics who was like, I have a story to tell you. And so that was sort of the investment in a nutshell. Where
by very personal, I mean they could speak.
He could, yes. There was a moving bar for
exactly.
personable, yeah.
For that level.
The CEO is articulate in describing why this is needed and whatnot. So those are the sort of factors that came to us together. It's one we're pretty excited about.
Amazing. Well, for Matt, I know Tectonic Ventures, you guys have a broader portfolio, spanning AI, robotics, health technology, etc. But there does seem to be a common thread, which is scalable technology and applied intelligence. Can you talk about how you think about identifying the right types of founders or business models that fit into the thesis, or what excites you most about where the tech venture is heading?
Yeah, it is very difficult to describe exactly what we look for. It is fundamentally about the economics. So we spend a lot of time and have a lot of relationships to make sure that we get the technology works. But it's more that sort of we already, we partnered with some AI lab, for many, many times. And so if we see something and we don't know whether the AI is special, just send it over, send it to one of our past entrepreneurs. So very quickly they're like, or wow, no, very cool. And so that, in some sense, a lot of people view VC as, oh, you're identifying whether the technology works. And it's actually, it's not so hard. Or at least that it might work. Sometimes there's something that you don't know, but okay, it's the best in the world. Or
the best answer is, can I invest in this?
Yes. So then we spend all of our time trying to understand, assuming it worked, or maybe if it even does work already, what are the economics? Who's coming behind you? How will you get customers that are sticky? How will you think about top of funnel? How will you think about your wedge in? How do you get the first customer? Because it's very easy to articulate something that would, work, but how do we get from here to there? Mm-hmm. So it's all around these sort of economics of from here to there that we really spend our time with, and we get excited when there's sort of fundamental economic things that are oh, that's gonna work, and it's gonna if we always sort of say it'll work, and if we win in a very big way, because it's very hard to have there be more than one is the best, or more than a few. This is sort of more realistic in many cases.
pretty amazing. I do have a follow-up question. So a little bit of freestyle here, going off script. I don't think there's an easy answer, but which one would you bet on? Would you bet on a subpar founder in a big market or a perfect founder in a small market?
Easy.
Person, yeah.
Yeah.
Founder?
Easy.
A good founder.
Good founder in a
Ooh,
small
yeah.
market, because the small market is only small market probably because you don't understand something about it, or
Yeah.
you know, that's our wedge in, and we're going to go
Uh-huh.
broader, or yeah. So there's in my firm, and it sounds like you're probably the same. If we don't think you're amazing, we're out.
Yeah.
Right.
It really doesn't matter what your idea is past then. Like, we're out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's too painful.
Yeah, I know. I've heard from both sides. On the first argument, it's kind of like, well, as a VC, your job is to create big enough returns to move the needle for the fund. So technically, if there's enough upside in the market, that could potentially work.
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like the strategy of like the Y Combinator. They can take a lot of founders, and then they might have thought, well, that one's kind of bad, and this one's kind of weird, and that one's, but it sort of doesn't matter because
It's like index portfolio theory.
yeah,
thing.
it's like it'll work. So, well, somebody will do something amazing, and it's true that if you like meet the WAG founders, some founders, you'll be like wholly unimpressed. But like, so we would never have done it. But like, obviously, you didn't need to be that amazing to start WAG or to crush. I mean, so like, it's not that being not amazing means you definitely fail. It's just, if you're going to do what I'm going to do, which is work with you all the time, spend a lot of time with you, all these kinds of things, I can't take it. It's so painful. You learn over the years, like, I just can't take that interaction. I'm out.
And honestly, like this is almost like this scenario you're describing doesn't happen a lot. Like if it's really an awesome founder, I don't see them headed towards small markets very often.
Right.
And so like part of being a really good founder is building into a place where you're creating a lot of value. And like if there's a really great founder heading toward a small market, they better have a great reason why this is a stepping stone to some bigger.
Yeah, it's
end.
probably just a wedge anyway.
Yeah.
It's like a brilliant
big
wedge.
span.
And
Yeah,
you're like, yeah, we're gonna.
Yeah, totally.
Keep
Amazing.
hold for a second and third.
Yeah. And people, we just think of it as like foundational.
Yeah.
And like then we're spending all of our time trying to figure out their economics here. But if there's any warning signs on the people, done.
Okay, cool. Amazing. Well, we talked a lot about investing in founders, but now I'd like to end on the other side of the table a bit, right? Talking more about the recruiting side of things, because a lot of us are interested in breaking into venture. When you're evaluating MBA candidates, what do you typically look for? Is it more about their industry expertise, networks, on-campus involvement, or pre-MBA experience? How do you weigh those factors, or is there anything that I missed?
There's a lot of things on that list. I think in general we're looking for people who have, demonstrated expertise somewhere. I think, generally, I think more and more ventures moving toward investing in places that you can, really add a lot of value, and that means knowing something about the space that you invest in. And so people who bring perspectives is I think one, however they generate them, you can get to there through a lot of the different places that you just mentioned. I think usually if I were to try and give advice here, we usually say you should try and get venture on your resume somehow. Everyone sitting in this room has this amazing opportunity to go and try and work in internship type situations with PE funds, venture funds, other people who will give them exposure to this space. And if you're really interested in it, we'd like to see that people have done that. And even if you haven't started doing that yet, the fact just that you started building the perspectives to do it, be it through any of the things you mentioned, is another thing that I think we would mention. So I'll turn it over to Matt.
Yeah, for us, I'd say probably the most important thing is an authentic love of that community, of the entrepreneurship community, and engagement with it. That it's not just a job because you've heard of the job and it seems like a good job or whatever it is. It's like,
seems cool.
Right, because it's actually hell. So, in some sense, if you don't love it, it is going to be hell. So you really want to sort of all of these things about just trying to get these community. You're in it. You love the entrepreneurs. You love trying to make these things happen. And so, just as far as how do you demonstrate that in some way, so then you can say yes, I have worked in it, so that you can demonstrate I killed myself to get in that job. Do things with startups, work with them, help them, advise them, help raise the money, all these kinds of things that you can do for that whole community. It just kind of shows that you're natural in it. Somebody who made an offer to is, while she was working as a full-time consultant, She was running her side gig, was working with all the startups in town for equity-only consulting jobs with all of them. It's like, great. So she already has a whole portfolio of startups that she's basically already invested in. She's investing her time. She's killing herself on the weekends and nights to do this. You've shown a ton of authenticism there around like why do you love these?
Yeah, or maybe just start writing angel checks.
Start writing angel checks. I always tell people to write, in just tiny checks, in some sense, like, because it demonstrates a lot of things. That founder only let you write that tiny check because you were helpful in some way, right? So that you're actually showing that you were there, you were helpful, you were into it, and you learn a lot when you write the little check.
Yeah, but they're not taking that money because that's going to get them overnight. Like they like you is what they're watching, letting you write that.
$2,000 is annoying.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
They do it.
So, someone later is going to tell them their cap tables and that's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, this is more technical, but for folks coming from traditional backgrounds, so think, banking, consulting, operating side of things, products, what's the best way for them to position themselves to start get involved, and can you break it down first years versus second years?
I mean, I think same advice. I think just like engaged with the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Like I think it's always struck me as almost interesting that we put VC and PE in the same club because they're very different.
Yeah, totally.
Sorts of companies.
Yeah.
To be a good VC, you need to be really interested in young companies, not just like analyzing how companies operate, but like guts of building a young business and engaging as much as you can, be it through ideally with young companies in some way, work with them directly. But if not, in other sorts of sort of support accelerator type capacities, just however you can show that you are invested in making a move out of big, large organizations into these small, nimble, sorts of messy companies.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the complete lack of knowledge around anything to do with economics, marketing, sales, cap table. I mean, we talk to founders all of the time that have a PhD in AI, but literally, they've had literally zero thoughts about pricing. Their answer is, we're going to have the same price for everybody. It's just API, they'll hit it. And we're like, oh, that's wonderful price discrimination you're going to have there. And they're like, what's price discrimination? And we're like, oh, good, let's start talking. So being able to go in and just talk about top of funnel, mid funnel, sales, marketing, strategy, any of these kinds of things, you'll find that around here, lots and lots of people barely know the words, but they're bright. And so with a few minutes of, let's talk about what a pricing strategy might look like. They're like, oh, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. A ton of sense. Let's have a pricing strategy. Great. How about I work on the pricing strategy for you? I'll come back to you with some ideas and some structure on that. Let's talk top of funnel, mid funnel, closing. Like, how about I work out some things for you about how this would work?
What is your ideal customer? What are their properties? Like,
Exactly.
how do we find them?
Why do you need an ideal customer? Because a lot of people are like, what do you mean I just sell to people who want to buy it? Like,
You
could.
You would be amazed how many very brilliant PhDs think that, like, if you build it, they will come, which that never happens. Like, unless you're making literally life-saving drugs, you have to sell. Like, there's a go-to-market motion to everything that's underappreciated by a lot of folks.
And I even gave a lecture once to a group within a giant pharmaceutical company that had a drug that previous to this drug, and it was a very small part of the world, but previous to this drug, everybody who got that disease died within 2 years. Their data was anybody on our drug had not yet died, had been around for 7 years. So it was literally the cure for this thing that killed you. And you know who I was talking to? Their sales and marketing folks. And I always used to use that as an example for years. I'm like, okay, if you have to have a sales and marketing get-togethers with the thing that cured the cancer, right? You need it for everything. Okay, you need it for absolutely everything. And so sometimes it takes a little education to make them understand why people are not going to beat a path to their door, even when they have the cure for cancer. But they're then typically smart, so get involved with any of them anywhere.
Okay, great. Well, maybe zooming out a bit, how do you think about what makes someone a great junior investor or future partner? I.e., what's someone you like to hire or work with?
I mean, I think the basic parts of the job are you need to find great companies, you need to convince them to take your money. Well, you need to diligence them to build conviction in them. You need to convince them to take your money, and then you need to help them win. And so those are kind of the basic competencies. And if you are a junior investor, you can get good at any of them. The networking one is one that everyone has to do well. It's probably a good place to start, like we were saying. Like you should talk to a lot of people, build up those relationships that you can get a beer with later and talk about the hair on a company. In the diligence side, that's, I think, a good place to have perspectives, to be able to have theses, to say, like, I think, this particular company or a company that meets this need is going to win. The convincing them to take your money usually comes with being at a specific fund, but then the helping them succeed is something that I think all the people in this room are already doing for the people who they know who are building companies. Helping a company win consists of making connections for them for some number of reasons, and so that's another skill you can practice in advance.
I completely agree with the 4 things. I tend to think of them as like a little bit on your life cycle, although you can do all of them to some extent right away. But when you first arrive, it's all about find. You gotta be out, about, in the community, social, knowing everything. When Juan first was thinking about having him join me, every time we did a call, I would say, there's a firm, it does this, it's in Boston, and he would say, name the firm. I'd be like, yep, that's it. And then I would do, there's another one, it's got 2 founders, one's tall, one's short, and he'd name it. And I go, yep, okay, that's it.
I saw that cocktail hour last night.
Exactly. And I was like, okay, got it. You're out, you know all the companies, you're talking to everybody, you're at least aware of a lot. Because that you can be, regardless of whether or not you have any idea how to diligence something, how to win something, or how to help something, right? That's sort of like step 1. Be aware of them all. Then step 2, at first, my early people will bring me all sorts of nonsense, right? Like terrible companies that are like easy to dismiss. And you keep dismissing with them and discussing with them, why am I so quickly out? So fine, they get better and better at sort of knowing. But also just some of that is just diligence work, which you can also be great at. Find all the competitors, talk about them, right? All this kind of stuff, you get there. Winning, in some sense, it's mostly up to the sort of more senior partners to be winning the deal. Although you can get there, and it could be your best friend from business school, right? There are reasons why you're going to be the one to win, and that's a great, early win in your career. It's like, oh, we actually got this because you knew the person, not because of me. That's great. Thanks for getting us into that deal. And again, this would be sort of, the more you were doing a young D2C dating app, almost thank God that you got in with them, not me, right? So it depends on what your kind of things you're investing in, whether that you would be winning more deals. So all of this is a little variable depending on your firm, right? And then helping, again, it takes a lot of experience. It takes a broader network to really be super helpful. But again, you could have this person and whatever. But I would start here, right? Start when you get in, make sure you're ready to be at every party, every conference, every pitch night.
Every practicing, being able to go to all the parties in a week. That's
exactly. And you do have to go to all the parties a week.
Whether you like to or not.
Yeah, and it's painful. Yeah. It's painful. And then you're flying around almost just so you know about them, because it's you're almost learning about them too late. You're not necessarily going to win that deal or whatever, but at least if somebody says, oh, you know about Scale AI, you're not like, what?
Who's that?
Yeah. Right, but hopefully earlier than now.
Okay, great. More specifically, I guess this is more of a technical question. Any advice on navigating the recruiting process? Whether it be internships or sourcing opportunities, talking to funds, building relationships with them.
I'm going to talk to an awful lot of people. Some of the same things of you should get venture on your resume somehow. Again, you have an amazing opportunity as long as you have the MIT.edu domain to just email people and be you seem interesting, I would like to help. Write it better than that, but that you can do that and get responses in a lot of cases. So get venture on your resume somehow, prove that you are interested authentically in engaging with the ecosystem somehow. Then meet everyone. Just you're going to have a lot of coffee dates. It's going to feel like you're going nothing will happen until it does, sort of thing, and that's one of the frustrating parts about it. But you want the game is to be top of mind, because the seats don't turn up all the time, and you want to be the last person that someone talked to when an opportunity crosses their desk. That you want them to say to the person who's oh, we're hiring. Oh, I just met this cool person who I think could be a good fit. And then add value or have perspectives is the last thing that I would say. When I was at Sloan, one of the things I found most useful in actually getting people to take my calls and meet with me is to be able to offer them something. So I helped run this little accelerator thing that allowed me, meant I needed to reach out to put VCs onto like panels and judging opportunities and stuff like that. And like VCs love to look smart and be put into places where they can be the expert. And so I had an even higher reaching out to them to be like, can I put you in front of a bunch of MIT students to talk and dispense your wisdom? And like, people ate that up. So like, as much as you can reach out to not just like ask something of them, but to offer them something, that's another thing I'd recommend.
I think I probably told most of you this, but so you'll be hearing a repeat, but this is the one job you can do without having the job. And so in some sense, do the job. And then whenever you have a chance to talk to somebody, if you have no idea who they are, but they're in an elevator with them and they say they're a VC, you can pitch your current thesis and the company you found. If you actually are actively reaching out to somebody, know their portfolio, know what they're into, and pitch your thesis and thing that you found that relates to that. Otherwise, don't pitch it. But so anytime you're talking to a VC, and anytime you want to talk to a VC, if what you were saying is, hey, I had this cool company at MIT that I'm really supportive of, here's why, it's going to be great. They're going to be able to listen to it, they'll evaluate your thinking. It's basically a job interview without you saying, I want a job interview. So to the extent that you can be authentically in the community, finding something fun and some company who you really love and get up to speed on it and its competitors, and then the person says, well, what about, this company and that company? And you say, oh, yes, here's why we're differentiated from them. Bam, you're going to look so smart, so fast. So, so you can do the job without having it while you're here. Yes, I just added another thing to your plate.
Yeah.
This is great because, volume, I heard the saying, volume begets luck, right? You guys just do it over and over and over again. This is great. Well, this is awesome. And I know a lot of folks here are, thinking about how to take those steps in their own careers. So this is super helpful. And now we're going to open up for Q&A. So feel free to jump in with the question.
Hi, Professor. So I'm wondering because there's sort of two ways into VC. There's one that you start up junior and work your way up. But I see also a lot of people who join VC later in their career as a higher level person. For the people who are thinking about maybe doing that at some point, what type of career would set you up for that?
Yeah, I mean, my joke answer for how to enter VC always is start a company, sell for $1 billion, and then go become a VC. And it's only sort of a joke.
Only a half joke.
Right. Because like your founder, the founder of Innospark, I sold a couple companies. Like it's not actually a joke. So in a sense, like if you are on the entrepreneurship, if you love entrepreneurship and you're in it authentically and you're doing it, yeah, of course, if you sell your company for billions of dollars, then you can start a VC with your own money. But even if you don't, but you're in it and I've been 3 times in startups, great. Now shift over to the other side. You'll have lots of insights. Salil, who's coming to my class this year, he started 3 companies, actually took no venture money any of the 3 times, and just sold all 3 companies. And then was like, maybe I'd be fun on the other side. And so a lot of venture capital firms will bring people around. We have a number of them who are just, we call them, in residence in some sense of the word, or like they're sort of peripherally around the company. And anybody who's like particularly interesting, it's, sure.
Yeah.
It's no skin off my back, really. I'm not going to pay you very much. You know what I mean? And now you're going to be a scout for me. You're going to be evaluating things for me. You might be helping the companies because you've been an entrepreneur. You're going to be doing all the things that I do, and then we're going to see. Do you actually like this job? Do you want to do it more? And they either like kind of come more and more and more and more. I have one now that I think actually he'll probably make partner one day. He's currently still an entrepreneur, but he's already like differentiated himself from the other advisors. And others are like, oh, I actually hate this. Like, I'm a founder, and this is all.
It's messy. Yeah.
Right, it's messy, and it's so. What people don't understand is just how random it all is. Like, day after day after day, new company, new pitch, new company, and some people are just like, I am out. I want to go back to being an entrepreneur. Yeah. But that path would be the sort of entrepreneur to venture capitalist.
Yeah. Run the type of company you'd like to invest in later.
Right.
So you talked about and I imagine all VCs do a bit of accelerating and helping, and you talked a bit about Y Combinator. Can you speak of when is it better to have a more structured accelerator process, or like a cohort process, or a non-structured?
As an entrepreneur or as a VC?
As a VC.
It has to do with your, in some sense, your holistic shtick, like what if you know we have these things that you talked about, the 4 things. There's really 5. You have to have an exit. So you have to be good at finding, evaluating, getting in, helping, and getting out. And if you're going to be a VC as a firm, you better be good at all 5. But you better have some shtick or some slice at why you're really amazing at some of these. What is that for your firm? So Y Combinator has got like a particular, it's a whole thing, right, about how they can bring in at the top of funnel this amazing number of people, and their brand is so strong that people who are quite competent go to an accelerator. Someone says, why does every other accelerator fail? Because if I told you what I was going to do is help you find an office space, a lawyer, and a bank account, that's a really sad group of entrepreneurs that need help with that. Okay, so then like, who am I getting? A sad group of entrepreneurs. So almost all accelerators, it's like there's a sort of a flaw in the logic. I'm getting entrepreneurs who don't know what they're doing, and sort of only Y Combinator's brand kind of comes back and overcrosses it. So if I started an accelerator, it would fail, right? Like, so in some sense, I can't. There's not a strategy of like you should be like this or you should be like that. It's just you've got to have one that's holistically leaning into whatever your part of these strengths are. How do you do that as well as you can?
Another thing that is probably well known, but like another reason that YC's model works is because they give you money on usurious terms. Like the value, like if you work out the valuation they're putting money into your company at, it is ridiculous. Like you would never accept money from any other investor on similar terms. And so part of why their model works is not only are they investing in this, they're basically taking an ETF, a giant swath of companies, they're doing it on great terms so that if any one of them works out, it works out pretty well for them. And again, if they didn't have their brand, no one else would take money like that.
Right, but even with their brand, right, they're eliminated. Lots of people are eliminated. Like we just backed a person who's been at SpaceX for 10 years. Is he going to Y Combinator? There's no chance. There's like 0 chance. Right? He's not doing it. He's not. So you go into the Y Combinator class, and what you will see is an average age of like 22, right? Brilliant people doing cool stuff, but the room is full of kind of kids, which is exactly right. I told my son to go to YC. Why? He doesn't have any other branding. He needs some branding. Let's go, right? So like for the certain set of people, YC is brilliant. It's going to get exactly a certain slice of the ecosystem. They've done it brilliantly, but other people can focus on other slices.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was going to say whoever.
Yeah. You. No, you. Yeah. Sorry.
So, I was wondering, in regards to experience abroad, how do you think that specifically translates to when it comes to like working for a VC? Given that some of us have experience, like a longer term experience abroad, might have understanding of certain sectors or trends, like what would be your advice in that area in translating that experience?
Not easy. There are U.S. investors who are sometimes focused on, like there's U.S. investors focused on Latin America. There used to be more U.S. investors focused on China. That's not going as well. So in some sense, there could be, I would try to find somebody saying, hey, that's what we're trying to do here. Great, we've got the dual thing. In some sense, most venture capital in the U.S. is focused on the U.S. Even venture capital not in the U.S. is focused on the U.S. So it's so U.S. centric that I would either be looking for back to wherever you had experience. Hey, I know you guys. Can I help you get your money to the U.S.? That's a great one because they're all like, oh yeah, great. Or can I help your companies access the U.S.? Because we're going to do VC here in Spain, but then we need them to get access to the U.S. market or whatever it is that you're going back and forth.
Yeah. I think much that. Just
Jeff, I think you mentioned something that helps is showing some level of like demonstrated expertise.
Yep.
I was wondering if you could speak to an example of how to actually like use that in a way that speaks to VCs, how to translate that.
So we invest in some sort of life science and deep technology spaces. And so one of the first companies that I invested in that I really experienced with was a company that uses AI and robotics to design drug formulations. And one of the reasons that this sort of business model works is because for a very long time, a bunch of pharmaceutical companies tried to extend the life of their products by using something called 505(b)(2) formulations that give them some more exclusivity on extended release drugs. And so like niche stuff, basically. But because I was able to have a conversation with this founder on a pretty deep level about why their technology was going to be able to use this set of regulations and how it fit into some of the business models that existed, I was able to convince them pretty early on that I would be a good partner for them. And so that's like a small example, but you can do that in a lot of different spaces. You know, the VC is a hard job in that you are trying to evaluate very many different technologies. And so there's a trap you can fall into of sort of speaking generally about, you know, everything that you see, and you know, if you try to find through lines that are truly cross-cutting across everything, you'll sound really vague a lot of the time. And if you can get down to a lower level of technical detail, I find that you can sort of build a strong relationship.
One of my partners is an MBA from here, but while he was at MIT, he began becoming interested in AI. And I know now that seems really obvious, but this was
Less obvious.
10 years ago. He was an MBA here, or something approximating that. Became really interested in AI, began studying it, began focused on it, actually left here and joined the IBM MIT AI Joint Initiative to try to commercialize this AI stuff. Okay, which I know now seems like funny, but at the time was like actually like a thing people were trying to do.
Lots of risk in that.
Yeah, and so when you know, we were obviously interested in AI before LLMs, and so I convinced him to come out of there then and come be a VC. He had gotten a lot of specialized knowledge around it, even to the point of actually publishing papers in AI, which now seems like a genius move. But the point is, he didn't do, you know, he did it because he was fundamentally interested in that. So in some sense, narrow yourself up into some field that you think is fascinating and interesting, and eventually you'll widen yourself back out. But you really can, you know, as an MBA, particularly with ChatGPT these days, get super knowledgeable about something, about you know, image generation, or you know, get just focused on something and get so that people turn to you to say, right? I mean, my whole firm now turns to Mark around AI. And of course, now he's the leading, like, oh shit, glad we have him. Right.
It was a good call.
And he's just an MBA, you know what I mean? Like, he's just an MBA. Like, that's not.
Just going to the point about going to a party every night, going to conferences, flying around. I think one of the challenges I've had, especially ramping this up in the last few months, is like how to stay focused within sort of that circuit, especially on a tactical level. Like, you know, do you have any tips as we go into sort of engaging on that level, like how to maintain your focus and how to maximize that sort of day to day?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have any good tips. It's very hard at first. And we talk a lot about how much time you should waste, because that's really what it feels like. It's like a waste of time. You're at another one of these events, you know, there's 10 more companies, none of which your firm is going to do, but you can tell instantly that your firm. You're not even, at first, you're not even asking whether I would do this, right? You're asking whether the firm would do it. Yeah. And so you're like, I know perfectly well my boss is throwing that out, so like, I'm not bringing that to him. So you just, you know, you're wasting time, like almost within, you know, a few minutes of seeing who's. And yet, gotta be helpful, gotta spend the time, gotta talk to people. All I can say is over time, you hone in your sort of, oh yeah, this is a good place to spend my time. This is how much time I need to spend there. This is, and try early on to get some focus around something. You know, picking some area, at this point AI, or biotech. I mean, it can be other things, but like pick something, pick robotics, pick AI. It's something you think has future, so you're at least, you're not going to every deep tech conference and D2C you know, app conference. You're you know, focused, but it's not easy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in the early days, like you have to earn the right to focus. Like in the early days, it's just like builds your network, like meet all the people, be known to them, know who they are. But like once you get to the point where you're saying more "good to see you agains" than, you know, "nice to meet yous," then I think that the advice I would give is like sort of know why you're going to an event. You should know that I'm going to this event because I'm going to, you know, keep up my relationship with this set of investors or, you know, academics, whatever it is, or I'm going to meet this type of entrepreneur that I'm excited to meet. You don't need to know who it is, but like know why you're going to an event. And if the answer is, I don't quite know why I'm going to an event, that's what you can ask, you know, whether you need to.
But at first you don't know why.
Yeah, at first you don't know why, yeah.
So we have no shortage of consultants at Sloan, myself included, so that's why I can say that. I'm curious, like we talked about having background in entrepreneurship, being a founder is really easy to pitch to VCs. How, you speak a little bit about how you went through the process while you were at Sloan and kind of going through the recruiting process of like, how did you pitch that experience, the why you made the transition and why you thought consulting to VC was a good transition point?
Yeah, and so I was coming from a fairly specialized consultancy that worked in like life sciences, and I was looking to move toward investment shops that worked in life sciences, and so that was like the through line that I used. But other than that, I tried to. My story was like I wanted to work with young companies. I need to figure out how. It's true. It's not just a story. But like I went and I worked for a small company. I did an internship with a VC. I helped with an accelerator thing here. It's called Nucleate now. I did a hot second in PE to figure out that wasn't for me. But I basically like tried to do all the things so I could sort of demonstrate to anyone who asked, like, I've looked at all the different things and like, here's why I think the venture capital is for me. And like, I can say that because I tried the alternatives. And like, that's, I guess, what I would recommend is like, I did these in semester, like I did buy-side BD, like people buying up the small companies during my MBA summer. But like all the other things are just like in semester. Like you don't need to wait for anyone to invite you. You don't need to wait for someone to come from the company. Like you can go find them. They'll. It's amazing to me how many different companies will just like let MBA interns do stuff. But like that was how I did that. And then that was mostly my first year. My second year, I had mostly done all the different things and figured out the VC was for me. And then it was just a large number of coffee chats and trying to figure out how I could, start the email with, I have something cool to share, or I'd like to invite you to do, rather than, can you tell me more about? Because I wanted to convey that, like, I have learned for myself that I like your space. I want to give something to you rather than take something from you, or at least exchange. And, did that a lot until I found, until I sort of broke through.
And there's nothing wrong with the consulting background. I mean,
No.
For this, it's like, we're very consulting-y. We have to do these quick wrap-ups on like whether this is a the investment memo. We have to do quick consulting help with the companies. So
the skill set will serve you well.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like they're going to be like, oh, consultants, you're out. Like that. It's a fun thing. Like if you have to take off, you can pull it. You're going to make fun of, but he's fine.
He sat in the front. Thank you, guys.
On the flip side of recruiting, how do you suggest students go about finding firms in terms of when we're kind of diligencing or evaluating what firms we think could be a good fit? Aside from sector specialization, how else should we diligence kind of a VC firm to see if it would be a good fit?
Talk to people first. First, just to build the top of the funnel, ChatGPT will tell you all the firms that exist in a space. But then, talk to people, and you should talk to people who work there, and you should talk to people who've taken their money.
I would also look at their investment portfolio. They're all public, and see what things are coming in more recently than a long time ago, because they might be on a different thesis now, or whatever. But actually, ask yourself: do I like those? Would I want to put my money into those companies, or am I like,
what are they doing?
What are they? I don't. Because you won't have fun there. You won't meld with their firm. You know what I mean? The whole thing will be super painful for you. And I, by the way, I give this advice even more broadly. If you like to think of your own money as being in debt instruments, awesome. Go be a bond trader. I mean, there's plenty of jobs in bonds. Like you make a fortune. So it's like that. Sometimes you should sort of be a VC if you think, I really want my money in these companies. This is awesome. And then in some sense, with that VC, I really want my money in those companies. I really appreciate what they're doing.
So do you feel like there should be less of a importance placed on track record? Because I know I come from PE, and when recruiting, a lot of people look at, quartile fund performance as a benchmark of if that's a fund that they would want to go work at. VC, it feels like there's obviously a lot longer time horizon, and it's a bit more of a black box potentially. So do you feel like, yes, less importance should be placed on what is that?
If you got down to having 2 or 3 jobs, we'd start talking about which one you should go to, and that might be track record, brand, boss. In general, I would be focused on the people / even the person, because you're not even really going to work for Sequoia or A16Z. You're going to work for a partner or Bessemer. So in some sense, who do you respect and want to work for. It's very much a mentorship, mentee business. You're going to spend a lot of time with this person, and if they're great as an individual, even if the fund, shuts down because they can't fund again, well, that person will go on and do something else. They'll jump to a different fund. You know who they bring?
Yeah.
So I would make it much more about the people than I would about either brand name or track record. Don't get me wrong. If they have 6 funds that are all disaster, you can be pretty sure they're going out of business. So it's not like I would put 0 weight on it. But the reason I also joke about if you have 2 or 3 jobs is it's pretty hard to break in.
Yeah.
So it's rare that one of my students is actually like, I'm debating is these 4 great jobs. Which company do you think I should take? It has happened, but like
The one on the table is one you should take.
right. Mostly, it's like your question is more like, should I go here or should I take that consulting job? I mean, it's going to end up being more like that.
Okay.
And then I tend to be more on the you're young, no one's going to blame you, and when it's a shitty return place, you're not going to even necessarily be there that long if it's that crappy. It's so hard to get VC on your resume. Go. If you really want to be VC, just go. Get something on your track record. Even corporate VC or other kinds of VC, which are not as exciting as regular VC, I'd still say if that's your best option to get VC on your resume, get VC on your resume, and then just get out.
Another way that I'd answer your question is that, like, if you look at the statistics, the best performing funds are managing relatively small amounts of capital and returning funds 1, 2, or 3. And so like in the future, when you look back, the ones that are going to have performed the best were probably a fund you might not have heard of operating in relatively early stages of their life cycle.
Yes.
Thanks.
Since you both make really early stage investments, often being the first check size in, how do you think about evaluating a company that has a really strong concept and potential market penetration, but doesn't have a lot of traction to show yet?
I mean, we often invest in a company with 0 traction because they are starting. So it is about the story and the people and the economics of the story. Like why, even let's just assume what you're saying is correct. You can make the software that does X. Who will buy that? Why? What will they pay? We're trying to figure out all of those. How is that market changing over time? So it is true that we look for market validation. I would love more market validation, but I do not always need it. It depends on whether the story is strong. Yeah, the story and the team is strong enough. You're pretty sure they're onto something. We'll fund that initial. Let's get to having a place where we can have market validation.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. We've invested in plenty of pre-revenue companies, but like there's steps to making your first revenue dollar, right? And we want you sort of like moving in the direction of traction, even if you don't have it yet. So that's about understanding who your customer is and being able to tell me, like, within X type of organization, the person who's going to buy my product is Y, and like I've talked to them, and this is what they've told me that their needs are, and like maybe they've written you an LOI. So there's this sort of like ladder of market validation, and like revenue is great. We love revenue, but like if you're not there yet, there's at least stuff that leads up to that. We want to see you sort of climbing that ladder.
That's probably the thing that most people miss when they're early on pitching, is they pitch some grand vision and sort of nothing in between here and the grand vision. And they're sort of missing that, like, I don't know, sure. I mean, often that grand vision is like a perfectly fine grand vision. I mean, how the hell would I know, right? So it's sort of, okay, but how are we going to get from here to there? And the great entrepreneurs, and since it's like a repeat entrepreneur, the joke on the repeat entrepreneur is here's some money. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You sold your last company for $700 million. Here's some money. What are you, electric toilet paper? It sounds really good when you say it. It's more just like because they know that like from here to there, and then obviously they're going to tell me about some there. But like everybody can tell me about some there. Some people can execute on the from here to there. So there's a lot of that story is either in the person. Like if I told you could invest in 2 companies, one, I'll tell you one piece of information. Elon Musk is founding a new company. And the other one has revenue, good CAC to LTV, growing rapidly. Which one do you want? Yeah, you take the Elon Musk one. Okay, so it's because like there's like so much there that you believe that is just connected to his, even though you might be a jerk, whatever. It's like you're done. So it's like obviously that's the most extreme version of that, but like when you bring it to that extreme, you can kind of see it. We want to believe that there's a lot of things there that we aren't going to ever really know.
Yeah.
I don't need to have the revenue. The more your idea seemed terrible, then the more revenue I'd be like, oh, I guess it wasn't terrible. I was wrong. Now I'll invest.
Okay, amazing. I think, guys, we're out of time here. So before we close and open for networking, let's give a huge round of applause for Jeff and Matt who are spending their time with us. Okay, we're going to use remaining time for networking. So feel free to come up and come on.
Nobody knows who I am. So.